conversation.
Join the conversation. You're with CapeTalk.
And moving away from the Springboks for a moment, because I want to talk about food waste. And you look at what's happening in the media and you see more and more celebrities coming forward talking about the urgency of our climate crisis, of our environmental crisis. You see Lewis Hamilton telling everyone they must go vegan to save the planet. Jane Fonda's getting arrested every second week on the steps of Capitol Hill, standing up and really saying we need to change the way that we treat our planet. And we are heading closer to COP25, the UN climate talks that are happening in December, where world leaders are going to be pressured to deliver on concrete action. But here in South Africa, there's an NGO called Rainbow Warriors, and they are teaching rural communities, small-scale farmers about the impacts of climate change and how to guard against them. And they're also involved in a project around food waste. Ryan Fortune is the Executive Director at Rainbow Warriors International. He joins me in the studio. And on the line, I'm joined by Natasha Napoli, who is the owner of Nourish'd Cafe in Kloof. Welcome to both of you. And Ryan, let me start with you to talk a little bit about what this project is.
Yes, Melanie. So the project was an attempt to get an understanding of the kind of challenges that are faced by not people in general, but I think by restaurants in particular around dealing with food waste. I spend a lot of time in eating out and going to establishments and that sort of thing, like I guess most people do. And really, for me, on a personal level, trying to understand the impact that my behavior has on the environment. In Observatory where I live, there are tons of really good eateries, and I spend a lot of time there, coffee shops and all that kind of thing. And I was always very concerned looking into the kitchens and seeing what are they doing with their waste. And generally when I spoke to the owners of these establishments, most of them say that it just goes into the general waste, and what happens to that ends up in the landfill.
And can you talk a little bit about when it's in the landfill, what the impact on the planet is?
Yeah, so first of all, in the Western Cape, and in Cape Town in particular, we're running out of landfill space. We're just filling up the earth with this profusion of our waste products. In the landfill, all it does really is decompose anaerobically. That means without oxygen because it's covered up, and it creates methane. Which is one of the more powerful greenhouse gases. It has more of a greenhouse heating impact than CO2 actually, and so that's what it does. And it's actually, it's organic waste that could be turned into something useful, something valuable, instead of this damaging effect that it has, just by simple behavior change. So for me, it was really an attempt to understand why is it not happening at the scale that it should be, and what can be done to kind of change that situation. And so so it's been a week now, and it was started just with this need to understand how much, what exactly, and the most efficient way to actually deal with it. So we can talk a bit about that. But I'd also like to, one of the restaurants that has really come on board quite strongly and immediately was Nourish'd in Kloof Street. I was referred to them by their branch in Observatory, who said please go and see Natasha. And Natasha was very enthusiastic, and they've allowed us to every day come and drop buckets with them and collect all their fruit waste and all their vegetable waste that they produce every day. So maybe she wants to say something.
Natasha, hi. What were you doing before, and how has this project kind of impacted your restaurant?
So we actually, in the beginning, we started the business with the principles of being extremely sustainable and extremely good to the planet. And so it was one of my core factors to really make sure that we weren't sending any of our waste to landfills. So we have always been sending all of our waste to recycling companies. All of our recycling goes to Recycle First, and then all of our organic waste goes to Y Waste. The one store in Kloof Street, we weren't sending that waste because it's quite pricey to send your organic waste to a recycling depot that collects this sort of stuff. So Ryan asked if he could take the waste from the Kloof Street store, and I was more than happy for him to come on board and to do it because it wasn't being done. But it just breaks my heart knowing how much organic waste goes to landfills where it actually could be directed in the right direction, where people could make, beautiful gold liquid soil from this beautiful resource. And I think more cafes and restaurants in and around Cape Town, all over the world, should really start thinking about where their waste lands up, and as well as their recycling. And so grateful for Ryan and for his team. We just have a bucket in the store that all of our waste goes straight into, and then he comes and collects it and then does the rest. So it's very, very lucky.
And Ryan, when we look at the numbers, the problem is huge because it's 7.7 million tons of waste produced in the Western Cape, more than half of that by the city of Cape Town. What are you doing now collecting this waste? What are you doing with it?
Yeah, so for me the thing is that those numbers are so enormous that they're almost they're abstract numbers. No one can actually conceive of even 1 million tons
So
or
you start small.
Yeah. So for me the thing was 5 or 6 restaurants, 7 restaurants, just for a couple of weeks to see what the volumes are. And then, and at the same time, I've been talking to a guy called John Holmes, who's based at Oudemolin at the Eco Village there. And he's got a biodigester, because actually this is how it came about. Like, I saw this biodigester, which is capable of turning organic waste into methane and into heat energy and into compost. And it's been standing on his property there for a few years and not being used. And I thought, this is such an amazing tool. Why don't I, and connect the dots?
So what does the biodigester do with the food waste?
So a biodigester basically is you grind the food waste up, and it could be anything, could even be cow manure or any kind of organic matter. You put it into this machine, and it basically containerizes the decomposition process. And so what it does is produces methane gas, which can be used for heating or for cooking or for any of those kinds of energy needs. And so that's what it does. And in places like India, where there's obviously almost 2 billion people now, and producing a lot of waste, there are thousands of biogas digesters all over the country that do this kind of thing. And in sort of low resource settings where people don't have trees or they've deforested places, it can be used as an alternative source of fuel. So it is a vast resource, and Cape Townians and Cape Town restaurant owners and even householders are just throwing it away. So when we complain about climate change or think about what we could do, this is one very effective way to kind of ameliorate or mitigate some of the impact that we're having.
The Western Cape Department of Environmental Affairs has announced that they want to implement a full ban on organic waste by, on the landfills by 2027. Do you think that the solution is to put pressure on municipalities, on waste removal companies, and do you think they'll comply? If you're dealing with 7 restaurants right now, it's a simple process. Do you think they'll be able to do it by 2027?
Well, they'd have to be very smart about it. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this with friends. Like, what is it that's going to change behavior? So, is it an incentive for people to do it, or is it a punishment? Do we use the carrot or the stick to get people to comply with these new regulations that are coming on board? I don't have the answer to that question. I know I've seen in the past how difficult it is actually for just restaurant owners to get staff to comply. Nourish is very good. Their staff is, they're fully on board. They fill the thing up. On other restaurants, I've left buckets there, and then two days later I go back and they haven't put anything in because they just haven't been paying attention, or it's got too busy, or so it's going to be quite a mission to reach any of those targets.
Well, let me ask Natasha, because restaurants are busy. I know Nourish'd, I live close by. It's a very busy restaurant. How did you get staff to buy into this, to say, listen, this is what we're doing now?
So I made it, I integrated it into the system from day one. And so when someone new starts training, they don't know any other way. So we know, like, they know this is a bucket for organic waste. And there isn't any other bucket. So there's not much room for, you know, the guys there to not do it. So that's kind of what I've done. Is from day one, we've shown the guys, okay, this is exactly what you need to do. And so I think it gets a little tricky when the restaurant gets a bit bigger. I haven't really been in a space that has, you know, say 30 or say 40 staff members. I mean, I've only got 5 guys working at the Blue Street store, and then I've got about 7 guys at the Ob store. So I don't know, Ryan, what would yours, I mean, you know, it is tricky, and I think if restaurants haven't been doing it and they've been operating for, say, like, you know, 5-6 years, it is going to be a case of, like, yeah, mind shift mentality, and because they don't know. You know, we have to explain, we have to tell them why, because for them to know, okay, why are they, I think that's also, it's like telling them why they need to catch the waste, and not just saying you need to do it, because then they can understand.
Let me give the final word to you then, Ryan. How do you get restaurants to do this?
Well, I guess I would agree with Natasha. It's a process of educating people, particularly not just the owners, but the restaurant, the kitchen staff. I mean, people, you know, the people have different roles in the kitchen. You know, there's the sculler, there's the food prepper, and in that chain of activity, in that process of getting the food from the kitchen to the plate, there are lots of different steps and people, so they need to be educated individually, to collectively, that this is how it works, this is what should be done, and the why of it, and the importance of the why. I mean, on a sort of a macro scale, what's really is happening is that we are deforesting huge parts of the planet to produce food for ourselves, and then we are eating that food, and the nutrient value from that soil and from that food we then consume, and it ends up going into the landfill, you know. So on a macro scale, what we're doing is we just basically, denuding the planet of its mineral resource and the soil in particular, and then sending it off somewhere else. Natasha is doing something very interesting tomorrow evening at the OBS store in Lower Main Road OBS. Maybe she can talk quickly about that.
Natasha, just briefly, what's happening tomorrow?
Sorry, the event tomorrow has been postponed till 2020 January, just because we feel like it's such an incredible event. We haven't had much time to market it, and so I'll send you all the information. It's going to be in January, end of January 2020. But it's basically we've got a couple of recycling depots from around Cape Town, Recycle First, Wasted, and Why Waste. To all come together at the Odd Store to talk about what is going on and where to start, how to start recycling, where to begin, just the beginner steps so that we can start people on their recycling journey.
Fantastic.
Because I think people want to do it, we're just not sure.
They don't know how.
Yeah.
Natasha Napoli, the owner of Nourish'd Cafe in Timbers Curve. Ryan Fortune, thank you so much. Where can people check out Rainbow Warriors?
Well, I've got a big and active Facebook group, so it's Rainbow Warriors International on Facebook, and that's the best way to engage with me. And our website is going up in a couple of weeks.
Ryan Fortune, Executive Director of Rainbow Warriors International. Thanks so much.
Thank you.